Thank you, everybody, for having us today. Excited to talk about this. I guess as a former entrepreneur, as a former restaurant owner, what do you need money for? Like everything, right? And you all know that probably just as good, if not better than I do, right? And it's those times that you kind of look around and you say, man, like, I wish I had 10 more grand in the bank. I wish I had like 50 more grand in the bank. Right, there's those unexpected situations, the prep kitchen floods, the roofs leaking, I don't know, some young kids decided to stand on the table in the corner and the top broke off and you're like, oh my God, I gotta get another 6 top, because if I don't, I can't get that party on Friday or Saturday night. So cash is king, and I think that you'll hear me talk a couple times over the course of the next 2 days, and Stephanie will echo that, cash is really the lifeblood of any business. So you think you're making a ton of money on the top line, it's about putting that money on the bottom line, right, and having that cash runway and able to operate. So, what is cash used for, and, what do you need funding for? Well, like I just said, everything. Where can that cash come from? Sometimes it can come from your pocket, meaning the business can make money and make cash and drive it into initiatives for the organization. At other times, you have to look outside. Right? And I think something that was awesome that was spoken about recently is, what's your long-term goal, right? What's your end game? You don't need to raise $10 million if you just want to have, 3 or 4 small restaurants, right? And let's say a beach town, God, I wish I did that. And kind of like run those operations. But if you want to scale, if you want to grow, if you want to open up 100, 200 locations, right? And that's your end game, right? Then you have to find funding, maybe from a venture capitalist, maybe from some angel investors, et cetera. So traditionally, right, when you talk about restaurant funding and the stages of funding, right, there are those 3 major buckets. You have that development stage, right, which is kind of concept development, business planning, really researching and trying to get everything kind of, ducks in a row. Your launch stage, right, which kind of overlaps that with the development and the growth stage, right? And then your growth stage, and again, growth means a lot of different things for different businesses. It could be expanding a product line. It could say, hey, I want to open up for brunch. Right? It could be the idea that I want to do consumer packaged goods, right? I want to take my salsas, right, and go to market with those. It could also mean that I want to open up in 5 or 6 different markets, or I want to open up 10 new locations. To do a lot of those really exciting kind of creative growth initiatives, or at least I think they're exciting and creative, to do those initiatives, you're going to need some capital. Right? And often you have to get that right from your business or from the outside. So 3 major buckets here as far as stages of investments are concerned, and I think a lot of people in this room kind of know that. What Stephanie and I will try to talk to is kind of those underlying elements here, right? Those things in between or during that maybe aren't as traditionally known, or like, hey, I know when I had to ask for money for my businesses, this happened, and this is what I needed to do. Right? So those little things about what we see in the marketplace, either from our own experience or from our clients' experience.
How many people are in the growth phase, more of the growth than the launch? And right. And so with growth comes, obviously, you start out with that launch, right? Because you have to relaunch, right? Relaunch your concept. And how many people want to be, she spoke so eloquently about, yes, I only want to be 1 or I want to be 2. How many people want to be 1 or 2? Good, fair amount. How many want to be 102? How many want to be 1,002? No, just kidding. There you go. Go big or go home. Right. Okay. Okay. So these are the various phases, and we don't really have to spend a lot of time on this. Is development, launch, and growth, because I think you all know. But I think the biggest question is the why. Why do you need the money? Right. That's the most important part of this. Why do you need the money? We know what the what is, but we know why. Right, and I think, and you said, so many sure you said it. Oh, we're going to say that later. Is paying yourself, you being part of that process, because you do. And there's no disrespect to the men in the room, but we all forget about ourselves, right? We all make sure that everybody's taken care of, everybody's happy, everybody's taken care of, but we forget ourselves. So it's the development stage. Why? Entrepreneurs need to support, the livelihood while pursuing their entrepreneurial needs, right? So you need money for that. And it's, what's going to be the life cycle of your business? That's the development. We're developing this concept. We need money to develop it, right? There's a phase. You're going to have this very long, no revenue phase, right? And so you want to make sure that you're able to develop whatever concept that is, with the proper funds in order to develop properly. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And then the launch, right? The launch is an extremely, extremely pivotal phase, right? The relaunch and the launch, right? Because that's the part where you have to, right, you have to make sure that you have enough money to do exactly what you want to do, to put your best foot forward. So many times, and we're going to talk about this on our next slide, is, what are the mistakes that we see with operators when they are launching or when they are relaunching a brand? And so that's a very pivotal place. And also, like, money just goes out the door. You see, you're spending on this, you're spending on that. Everybody's asking you for money at that phase. People are smiling, and you all know that that's true, right? And then growth growth incorporates launch as well, because I said it's relaunch. But growth is, building that team, building that bench, that infrastructure to scale. Whether it be from a CPG, whether it be to open up, like Steven said, in a different market, a different revenue stream, a different, a couple more restaurants, whatever you'd like to pursue. And that's really, but it's knowing the timing of when you need that money. Because you never want to be in a situation where you're going back and asking for money. You've already asked the money, now, I got to go back and ask again. So it's important to understand, and later on, we're going to talk about financial modeling and knowing how much money you're going to need. But I think it's important for you to understand that you need that money before you need that money. That's really important. Important to understand that. Let's go to. Okay, so why do operators fall short?
Yeah, so insufficient capital to hit volatility or a kind of inflection point in the marketplace. I think it gets back to, I guess, one of my experiences I'll never forget. Thought did really well one quarter and was going to write checks out to the investors in my hospitality group. And I wrote those checks, and then my bookkeeper said to me, I think those checks were a little bit too big. I said, well, what do you mean? Like, we have the cash in the bank. And he's like, well, I think you need a higher percentage of free cash flow in your bank to be able to weather the storm, right? Because I was like, okay, cool, we made $100,000 or $10 or whatever it was. Let me chop it up and pay everybody back, right? And I did it, and I probably did it more aggressively than I should have, right? And I kind of gave out a little bit more. I mean, the essence of what I was trying to do was just try to pay back people for supporting me and kind of taking a chance with me. But ultimately, I think it was maybe about 6 months later, right, that I said, oh man, I wish I had that extra 30 grand in the bank, right? So cash runway is super, super important for any business, right? Especially hospitality business, especially with all the volatility in the marketplace, right? I mean, we all went through a lot with COVID, right? We all go through a lot with, like, the storms in New York and kind of, even out in California and all the stuff that's going on. You could always take that cash out later, right? If you can keep that 30 grand in there or that 100 grand in there, and 2 years from now, it's still in there, right? But having it in there is way more important at times than putting in that investor's pocket per se, because they gave you the money to invest in your business because they had extra, right? So it's important that you keep that lifeblood into your business.
I think, yeah, and we used to say, sort of the rule of thumb was, 3 months of working capital, right? That should be your bank at all times. I always like also a reserve for like furniture and fixtures and breakages and all those things. We call a CapEx reserve as well. I think after the pandemic and just the times that we're living in today, I think, I would stretch that out to 4 or 5 months, maybe even 6 months if you could afford to do that as well. People are laughing, 6 months, right? But you don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know, and the importance of having that. Your investors will be fine if they know it's for the growth of the company or for the health of the company. They're going to be fine waiting that extra 3 to 6 months, to ensure that there's enough capital in the business from a long-term perspective to have it grow.
So next bullet point, again, something that I experienced a little bit, and I have a lot of clients that experience this as well, is, right, you're really good at what you do. That's why you're all sitting in this room here, right? And you're probably better than your peers, right? I would probably say. But the reason why you're here is because you're great at what you do. The reason why you succeed is because you make others great at what you do and also what they can do. And what I mean by that is I see a lot of entrepreneurs modeling themselves into their business, right? I'm the best chef. I make the best dumplings, right, in all of New York City. Will you want to make dumplings for the rest of your life? If you do, that's great, right? But your aspirational goals might be to say, hey, I want to get more involved in non-for-profit, right? I want to start a family, right? Or I want to travel more, or I want to open up a second or a third location. If you're constantly the one making the dumplings, right, then ultimately you can never do any of that other stuff, right? And what I mean there is that when you're paying yourself whatever you're paying, you're doing the ownership and the kind of executive work, plus you're making the dumplings. If you want to do anything else, you got to pay somebody to make those dumplings, right? And whatever kind of like analogy that is in your business, just know that you're going to have to replace yourself, right? And there's a cash amount there as far as a corporate overhead is concerned to be able to pay for that. And when you're making, I don't know, $10 a month, right? But you're the one kind of manning all of that, operational stuff and then the ownership stuff, right? Now all of a sudden you want to, I don't know, travel and you have to have somebody make the dumplings. Well, all of a sudden your $10 a month went down to $4 a month. And that $6 gap or delta there can really hit the bottom line, right? And can kind of take your cash runway and your liquidity and kind of dry it up a little bit. So one of the biggest things for young entrepreneurs who are trying to really grow their business, right? And whatever that grow means for you is making sure you can build that corporate infrastructure underneath you to allow you to be the owner or allow you to be the CEO, right? Ultimately, if you work yourself in the business too much, then ultimately there's going to be a cash hit at some point when you run your numbers, when you try to take that step out. Or a skill deficit because you haven't taken the time to teach your team how to do what you do.
I always tell my team, I want somebody to take my office. I can't wait till somebody takes my office.
Can I take it?
You can take it tomorrow. I can't wait. Please take my office.
Her office is awesome.
And right, and when is it appropriate to build the bench? Because operators typically do it too late. And I will say, what I deal with a ton of private equity, investment bankers, private equity funds, for my clients that are really looking to scale and have that big check come in. And they'll look at the management team. They always want to know, do you have a strong management team? Obviously, are you differentiating yourselves? Right? Do you have a special brand? Can we scale this brand? Based upon all the economic metrics, right? But they also want to know that if you have a strong management team. Because to Stephen's point, they're going to expect you to do other things, right? They don't want you to make the dumplings. And even if you have 3 locations and that's all you want to be, are you going to run around making dumplings in 3 different restaurants? No, you're not going to do that. So appropriately finding the time when to build that bench. And that's part of raising funds. That has to be part of what you are raising. Don't think about it as just as, oh, I want to open up 5 restaurants. Oh, I need, you put the budget together, the capital budget together, and I want to buy, all the equipment and the build out and all those things. But the human capital factor is ignored, very much so. And adding to that and understanding how much you're going to need. And you might not, don't think that somebody's going to hand you a check today and you have to use it all today. You could use it over time. And so building that bench I can't stress how important that is. Talking about another one.
You love talking about cash on the shelf and build outs, and I don't know, what do you need, right? And what do you want, right? You see that, like, I don't know, I talk about that at home, like, I don't know, once a month at least when I'm paying my credit card bills. And I'm like, oh God, did we really need that stuff from Amazon? Or that box shows up and you're like, Or I just bought I don't know what I bought, like $112 of Brodo the other day. I know, I thought I needed it, and I'll tell you what, in about a week
I
when
love
I
my
eat
Brodo.
it, yeah, for sure. But did I really need it? And I think just when you're talking about a P&L, you talk about fixed costs and variable costs, right? Fixed costs, your rent and things like that, you really can't budge that, right? So it's you can't shake that down by 5%. Maybe you could shave it by 0.5% or whatever that is, but what you can shave are those controllable costs. So just really having a clear definition of what do you need and also what do you want, right? And that's throughout the life cycle of the business, from the development process, right? I don't know, when I opened up one of my locations, I must have bought 150 cookbooks, right? I was like, oh my God, I was so nerding out in this whole cookbook world, and Ottolenghi out of London was really big for me at the point, and I was just and I was like, oh my God, did I really need 9 of these cookbooks? No, right? Could it have saved me I don't know, 150 bucks? Yeah, would it have made a difference? Not sure, but it's just that kind of discipline, right, that you need to have in running any business. And that's the want versus need.
So no true North Star. What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Not understanding. I had a client that they wanted to grow, and they had all the money in the world to grow, but they didn't really know what they wanted to be. They didn't know what their mission was. They were going into 12 different revenue streams, and not really concentrating on one or two. They were just all over the place, and all that money was gone because they didn't know who they wanted to be. I always tell companies, and Jen will attest to this when she first met me, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What do you want to be in 5 years from now, right? Who do you want to be? And build on that, who you want to be. And to his point, I want to be 1, I want to be 2, I want to be 102. It doesn't matter, but understand that when you're raising money, understand who you want to be. The money, again, it doesn't have to be spent all at once. It could come in tranches, but understand what you want to be and position yourself so you raise the right amount of capital that you believe you're going to need to validate that true North Star.
Just to add something there, something that's always, I think, a lot of just business owners miss at times is setting parameters and defining success, right? And Stephanie's talking about that. What do you want to be when you grow up, right? I want to be X. Well, what does X look like, right? Financially, what does it look like? From a business perspective, what does it look like? From a physical infrastructure, what does it look like, right? So saying, I want to be the best restaurant in the Northeast of the United States, well, that's great. That's qualitative, right? Quantitatively, what does that look like? And being able to benchmark yourself against those quantitative metrics and those qualitative ideals as to what success actually means. Because it's important to keep yourself disciplined and on the path to be able to grow up and be who you want to be.
And if your metrics are slightly off, maybe from industry standards, there's got to be a reason why, right? Like if this restaurant, if your competitor or friendly competitor is dropping 15% to the bottom line and you're only doing 10, right? My next 5 is 10. Well, why is it only 10? Well, it's going to be 10, but then I'm going to get to 20, right? For this 5 years, I'm going to be at 10, and then I'm going to be at 20. There's got to be a reason why. You have to validate, right? And you have to back up what those metrics are, what success looks like for you, for any investor. Because an investor outside of your family and friends, your family and friends, your family especially thinks they're just giving you a gift. If they get it back, wow, that is a gift. It's Christmas to them, or Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. But if a gingerbread comes in, right, or if an institutional investor or high net worth individual, they want their money. Their expectation is they're going to get their money back, right? And they want a certain, they say, what's my, going to be my rate of return? When am I going to get it back? And that's something that you have to, again, build in and understand, when am I going to be able to give those investors back? I want to take this one.
Go for it.
No, failing to take themselves.
Well,
I don't think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I think, why don't you go to the last one?
Yes. All right.
Steph's favorite.
This is my favorite. My all-time favorite. Failing to execute on lessons learned. The restaurant industry is notorious for talking about what we did wrong, right? You didn't get this percentage, you didn't get that percentage, you didn't meet this revenue goal, we didn't do. Notorious, that's all I hear. Every meeting, every management meeting I have, we talk about what they did wrong. And I say, stop. What did we do right? Right? What did we do right this month? Did we, on cost of goods sold, on labor, what are the good lessons that we've learned? Take what we've learned, the good stuff, leverage it to when we open up that next restaurant, the 1, the 2, the 3, right? Why was labor so good? Sometimes it's so good. Well, it's great because we had 3 people working because nobody showed up, or nobody, everybody had COVID, whatever, right? And so we know that's not, we're not going to be able to sustain that. That's unsustainable, right? But we never talk about why something is good. Let's repeat it. What did we do? And repeat that and bring those lessons learned to the next store, to the next idea that we have. The CPG or the next revenue. We're going into catering. Or what have we done well? And I think that is missed by most, if not every operator, leveraging off lessons learned. And yes, we talk about the bad things, right? The lessons of the bad, and that's what people take from this. Oh, lessons learned, what's the bad things that happen? No, what are the good things that happen? And how could we repeat those good things in a manner that is going to help us with our growth?
Come on, Steph, take the last one. That's
All
your
right,
favorite.
I'm a tax partner by trade. Don't forget Uncle Sam, right? Everybody forgets it. Well, we'll talk about it. In modeling, we'll talk about that. I could talk about this all day long, right? We have a banner year, right? We have a great year, 2021, or let's say 2019, one of the best years ever, right? We had all this cash in the world. We're going to distribute it out to all our investors. We're going to do X, Y, right? We're going to build a new restaurant. All right, this happened to, I don't even know how many restaurateurs. 2019, great, we have all this cash. We're going to build a new restaurant. We're going to build 10 new restaurants. Great, we're going to take all that cash. Oh, we've opened none of them because, I don't know, the world ended, right? And we didn't get to open up any of those restaurants. All our cash is gone. All our cash, we made a lot of money in 2019, right? Uncle Sam comes calling, right? Oh, we don't have any money to pay Uncle Sam, right? So don't forget Uncle Sam. Right? That has to go. It's going to go in your financial modeling. It's going to go in the way you think of raising money, right? Tax rules change, and you're going to answer. But don't forget Uncle Sam. I say the most important people to pay are your sales tax, right? I don't even put myself first on the list. Jen knows that. I don't put myself first on the list. You want to have your sales tax paid. You want to have your payroll taxes paid, and you want to pay your landlord, right? Those are the three most important vendors that you have, that you need to pay to continue in your business.